Hey, everybody, can y'all hear me?
Bill, on Facebook, Kyle says you are very wise and should have been voted in as Houston's mayor.
Well, where was he?
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, kind of glad I wasn't now.
Hey, everybody, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're still live on Facebook. What subject do you guys want to talk about? I know Chris Tritico wanted to visit about a topic, and we just didn't make it in that segment. Chris, jump in here.
On that last segment?
The one before that, I think.
Oh, on the one before. Oh, it was just that there's a story out that the GOP is having a spring donor meeting in Florida and is requiring anyone for admission to prove that they have passed a COVID test, which I think is so inconsistent with this passport thing. So, you know, you have to have an ID to vote. You have to show vaccines before you come in our meetings. But no, we're not going to have the passport. I think it's completely inconsistent.
Well, it's a private event, so they get to choose. But I think the same thing can be said. The same thing can be said for all these corporations. You need airlines. You need to show your ID to get on.
I will say there's. I do think technically there's a little difference between requiring a COVID test and getting a vaccine. I mean, there are some people that are worried about reactions to the vaccine. I think that risk is greatly overblown, but there's a little bit of difference there. But I'm just telling you, folks, this is over with. The numbers are stunning. What's happened here in the last 2 months, and we have the vaccination. This vaccination program is nearly miraculous. I mean, what we've done here has never been done in the history of the world ever. There's never been a pandemic that's been ended with a vaccine before.
Right.
Because we've never gotten one approved fast enough for it to have any effect. And, we've now got almost 60% of people over 65 in this country vaccinated. It is just almost impossible to believe that we've actually accomplished that. And I just think it's one of those things we ought to step back for a second and say, hey, wait a minute, this country still can do great things.
Yeah.
It is a miracle what's happened on this. And by the way, it took both parties to get it done. And frankly, I mean, the politicians didn't much do. The drug companies and hundreds of thousands of healthcare professionals are the ones that made this happen. And the politicians sat around and patted themselves on the back and took credit for it.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey, Jess.
I do think the president opened the floodgate to say we're gonna get this done, and he released.
Yeah, Trump, I'll give Trump credit. He was the one that put the money behind it early. And by the way, when he did, a lot of people were saying it was ridiculous. You couldn't have a vaccine for 2 years and all this kind of stuff. And he charged ahead like a bull in a china closet. It's about the only thing he got right on COVID, but he did get that right.
That's what I was about to say. I will give him the credit for giving them the permission to fast track it. But that's the only thing he did right.
Wow, in a short amount of time, we got Chris to give Trump credit and say that the people who are behind Act Blue should go to prison for their
Hey, Jessica, let me jump in here, guys. Jessica, I want to ask you, you've been spending some time in Austin. What's flying under the radar over there?
Well, these priorities that the governor has set out, and the Senate and the House, they are moving. The priorities are moving this session. The emergency items are moving. You're seeing, very swift action on the ERCOT issues. You're seeing very swift action, clearly on election reform, on the school choice priorities, on the priorities that you've seen that the governor, the Senate, and the House have laid out. They are moving. So those, we're certainly getting late into session now. If things don't pass out of committee by the end of this month, it becomes very, very difficult for them to move at all. And, everyone has acknowledged that redistricting is clearly going to be in a whole separate special session, obviously with the census data not coming out till the fall. So that's really not clogging up the works to wonder if they're going to be able to even tap on it this session. So you're seeing these priorities as laid out by the governor, the House, and the Senate moving very quickly through the legislature.
I'll tell you, I haven't seen anything happen on ERCOT. I mean, there's 100 bills filed. I don't think any of them are going to pass. And I don't see anybody. I mean, I'm going to tell you what, that problem, I think a lot of what's going on in Austin are people trying to detract attention from that problem. I mean, $47 billion changed hands in a very short period of time. And there's going to be consequences of that going on for at least the next decade. And I don't think anybody wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
No, because we need an entirely new business model for moving power around this state, and nobody's got the political wherewithal to do it.
I don't.
Hey, Chris.
I don't know what the answer is, and I don't think we even know exactly what happened. What I would love to see is for Abbott to convene a commission like Perry did after the two hurricanes, the two I sat on, and we studied it, and we found a bunch of stuff we had no idea that we knew at the time. But I'm going to be on a panel tomorrow night discussing this with the League of Independent Voters, and we've been setting up these meetings with various interest groups talking about it. And I'm just going to tell you what, the complexity of this problem is as tough as almost anything I've ever seen. And any of the simple solutions, I mean, anybody says, oh, here's the one answer, I promise you they're wrong.
It's not
enormously complicated.
I think that's why they're dealing with the issues right in front of them right now. I mean, you're seeing bills move on this right now. And it would be disingenuous to say that there's a solution in place without having given it a full study.
But like that bill, the bill the Senate passed that said we're going to claw that back was bullshit. There's no mechanism in place to claw that back. You know, there's no legal right to it. There's no way.
Oh, yeah.
What's that? I mean, $47 billion of transactions have been settled. You know, $47 billion of transactions have been settled. And, you know, how are you going to go get that money back from those people? Are you going to go back and file lawsuits against all of them when they were complying with the law in place at the time? Right. I mean, it is enormously complicated. I'm going to tell you the one thing that I don't understand is that guy that was running ERCOT. You know, first of all, when he raised it up to $9,000 a kilowatt hour, there was no increase in generation. So why he did that, I have no idea. And then once the grid was unloaded, where it was clear they didn't need it, he left it in place for like another 36 hours after that.
Is he doing that?
That's like 16 billion of the 16 of the 47 billion came in that period when there was no justification for it being out there.
But Bill, is he doing that, or is the market moving that?
The way that works, this is what I've learned about this, Chris, at least what I think I've learned about it. So the market, you know, the market goes up, but ERCOT can set a higher price than what the market's bidding in to try to bring in generation. And so that's what they did. They raised it to the statutory maximum of $9,000 a kilowatt hour. But the problem is, if nobody's generators are running, it doesn't matter what you raise the price to, because it's not going to generate any more power. And so by doing that, all he did was give a whole bunch of money to the people that were already producing as much power as they could produce. It was complete nonsense. I mean, look, I'm a big free market advocate guy, but there's times where the free market doesn't work. And this is one of those situations when you've got extreme shortages. The free market doesn't work. And if you go back and read Adam Smith, he said that when he wrote Wealth of Nations, you know? And so but I don't know why this guy raised it to 9,000, and I don't understand why he left it there that long. And everybody's trying to sort out, you know, nobody really even knows exactly who the winners and losers are on this, you know? Well, I mean, there's some public utilities that made a windfall. There's some that got killed. I mean, it's just, you know, exactly. It's you can't even come up with a conspiracy theory about it because you can't figure out who the winners and losers were, you know?
But that satisfies my already settled view that we need a new system in the state. I mean, to have...
Well, we certainly need some changes to the system.
Have a guy
The biggest problem I've got is for that ERCOT chairman, or really the executive director, you know, none of these people were elected, to be able to with just signing his signature, you know, just with signing his signature, he spent 4 times the rainy day fund.
Yeah.
You know, this guy that nobody even heard of before this all came about. I mean, that's a problem. Look, it definitely needs a bunch of work, but I'm really skeptical about rushing off and doing a bunch of things without us really studying. I thought Strauss made the most sense on it. He said we need to have a commission, go study this for 6 months, then come back and have a special session on it after we get back the results.
I agree with that. And can we change the name from the rainy day fund to a big pile of money we're never going to spend?
A savings account. Call it a savings account.
Yeah.
Hey, what happens, Chris? I have a question for you. why doesn't Deshaun Watson just say, look, $10 million, $500,000 a client, let's make this go away?
Well, my understanding was, and I don't have anything other than what I'm reading, but my understanding is they offered money on the first letter they got, and it was turned down. And they were trying to get this thing resolved, and the negotiations failed, and that's when all this started. And so I don't know that they ever got close enough that they could get it all resolved before the snowball started rolling down the hill, and now they're just going to have to litigate it. At this point, these cases with people like Deshaun Watson are resolved before it hits the public. When you've got a Deshaun Watson and it hits the news, there's no value left in settling for him. The value was before the first news conference, and now he has no choice but to go to trial. And
Chris,
so,
will they consolidate? Will they consolidate these cases and try them together? It's different facts in each set.
I think that on something like this, they'll probably, if they can come to an agreement on anything, then it may be we'll try this one. Pick, plaintiff X. We'll try this one, and then we'll see what we can do about solving everything.
Chris, I have to tell you, just in my lens, when I hear things like hush money for $100,000, that pales in comparison to the suffering, the pain, the trauma that somebody might be enduring. Right. So when I hear that as hush money, I think, oh my gosh, that's a tiny settlement. Maybe that should have been, considered before it came to this,
Right. Well, the hush money word was hers, apparently, not anybody. That's the money. That's the word that the alleged victim used before any of this started.
Yeah.
And so, which if she said that before she hired a lawyer, that's coming into evidence.
I'll tell you,
there was an email allegedly that they sent from the Busby camp to Deshaun Watson's agent/attorney at the time, who's based out of California, saying for $100,000, we're not going to make this allegation public. And then they came back and said, well, it's not, there was no wrongdoing, so why would we give you?
Okay. So if that's the case and she didn't say hush money, that's just a settlement negotiation, and that will not come into evidence. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that's a pretty small settlement, paling in comparison to the pain and suffering.
Right. And that's why agents should not be trying to resolve litigation. So I thought the agent should have been smart enough to say, let me get a lawyer involved. Just give me 24 hours. I'll get a lawyer involved. And he should have called Hardin or me or somebody else and said, and let a lawyer who does this for a living handle that, because all of this probably might have gone away. I actually represented, I'm not going to say who it was, but I actually represented a plaintiff against a Texan, and Rusty Hardin, I knew, happened to be representing this person. And I wrote Rusty a letter and said, here's the facts, here's the way it is. You got 10 days to pay us this amount of money, or I'm going to file this suit publicly. And that matter was resolved in 10 days.
Well, I'm sure hindsight's 2020 right now, right? Because the train has left the station.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think is what's going to be
Bill, let me hear from Bill.
The interesting legal issue here is going to be, generally speaking, you can't bring in other bad acts to prove, a course of conduct. I mean, it's very difficult to do under what they call 404B. And the reason you would want to consolidate this is to try to have that all heard at one trial. So if 20 people get up on the stand and testify over and over, the jury's going to say, well, if he did it 20 times, he did it in all of them, And generally the courts don't allow that kind of evidence. They do in some cases, like Bill Crosby, they got that in his trial. But that's going to be the real, because if you try these one-off at a time and the other women can't testify, then it just becomes a he said, she said. But if you bring in 20 she's and one he, then that's going to weight the way the jury weighs the evidence.
That Rule 404B has been very much watered down with respect to sex cases in Texas. And,
has it?
Almost everything comes in now.
It seems like the tide's kind of turning against him, because initially he said that all of it was untrue, that at this most recent press conference it was, well, in a few of these
consensual,
yeah, it was all consensual, and it's like it's just getting weird at this point. So I don't know. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Hey guys, I got a question. And Chau, Chris, y'all may be best to answer it. What is the DA's office doing right now as some of this stuff moves into their realm? And what's Kim Ogg's play?
Yeah.
We got to wait and see what goes to the DA's office. Right now,
Right.
all we know is there is one case being investigated by HPD, and the DA may not be doing anything yet because nothing's been there.
He's got to file a complaint.
Yeah.
Right. Until HPD or some other law enforcement agent takes something to the DA, they're not doing anything.
And then, like you guys have mentioned, I mean, many of this is being played out in the public domain. You know, the direct messages on Instagram, the sort of the damning messages that Deshaun will send to massage therapists. Now, does it call for a criminal complaint? We don't know right now, but it sure does smell suspicious when you're asking.
Doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't look good when you're asking a massage therapist. Here's what I want you to wear.
Mm-hmm.
When you show up, and here's the picture, the screenshot I took from your Instagram.
And and I didn't hear Rusty's whole press conference, but saying that the conduct was consensual doesn't mean with respect to every one of these cases either. So let's wait and see. You can't convict him because his lawyer said something on all the cases either. You don't know yet what he's talking about with respect to all of, I don't know how many there are now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, Greg, I think something we need to talk about pretty soon is the I-45 expansion. There's been some big news, and the Biden administration has pulled the funding of it now, and I'm going to tell you, it has tremendous consequences for downtown Houston, I think.
When
For instance,
this last week.
Yeah, I didn't read that, Bill.
Yeah.
So,
there's two sides to that issue. I'm not trying to argue one side or the other, but not doing anything, which is kind of where we're at right now, it could be the final nail in the coffin for downtown, in my opinion.
well, you guys have probably been talking to folks in the commercial real estate arena. I mean, what is the future of all of that commercial office space as the energy sector contracts, as folks get comfortable telecommuting? And I think I had this conversation with Bill King, but you can't retrofit those commercial office buildings into residential, which is, one option. They're just not built that way. I mean, what happens to all that space? We've still got cranes in the air.
I'm telling you, I have a friend of mine who bought an office building downtown about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think he paid like $60 a square foot for a Class B building in downtown Houston. I mean, the prices are just going to plummet. And it's going to be used for all, he's basically renting it out to government agencies at extremely cheap prices. There's still some need for office space and stuff, but I'm telling you what, I think downtown Houston is a world of hurt right now.
Well, I think every downtown. I mean, it's going to be years before commercial real estate recovers because of, I think every major employer is going to cut back now that they know that not everybody needs an office anymore.
I want to tell you, I've been buying property up in the central part of Texas and buying old ranches and subdividing it. I can barely get one subdivided before it's sold out. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the exodus out of the cities right now.
Breakfast on Bill, where are we meeting?
What's that?
And
Breakfast on Bill, where are we meeting?
LaGrange.
Beautiful.
That's my current hotspot. By the way, if you haven't been up there in the last couple of weeks, the bluebonnets are unbelievable this year. I mean, people are stopping alongside the highway and taking pictures and going out and laying. Man, it's just, I've never seen the blue bonnets as
I've seen some photos on Facebook. They look amazing.
they are unbelievable this year. Really stunning. Really
It was-
stunning.
It looked great.
My dad was doing that, Bill, in the late 70s through the mid 80s before the savings and loan crisis put him out of business.
Yeah,
Hey, I've got a question for
painfully
Jessica.
remember those experiences.
Yeah.
Jessica, can we expect any right to life legislation to hit either floor?
Oh, it's already
Already
done
passed.
in the Senate. 6
Yeah.
bills passed in the Senate a couple weeks ago, and in the House, the hearing was on this past Wednesday. All the major bills, and it's pending in committee, but we expect it to be voted out of committee and then go to the House floor. So yes, and it's as I mentioned, it's one of the priorities between the governor and the House and the Senate, and they're moving. So I would go back to what the governor said in his State of the State, and of course with the addition of ERCOT, and then also go back and see what Lieutenant Governor Patrick laid out as his 31 priorities in the Senate, and what the House has laid out as their priorities. Those are moving through the legislature.
By the way, I want to recommend a book to everybody. I'm just now finishing it up. It's called Unstable Majorities by a guy named Morris Farino he's a Stanford professor. And he basically makes the argument in the book that it's the political parties and the chattering class that have polarized us, not the American people. And one of the pieces of evidence that he submits for that, which I'd never seen before, is something called the American National Election Survey. It's been conducted every 4 years since 1970. And one of the things they do in that survey is they have 12 issues that they give you one of 7 multiple choice answers to. And number 1 is the most conservative position on it. Number 7 is the most liberal issue. So abortion is one of the 12, which is what made me think of. So 1 is no abortion ever, no exceptions. 7 is anytime you want one, right up to the moment of birth. And then you walk back to more moderate positions. And they do this on like 12 different positions. Every single issue, every survey for the last 50 years has been a bell curve on the 4.
And
hasn't changed at all on any of these issues. And I just think it's sort of fascinating that that's not the perception that you get from the media at all. But America is a dead center, maybe a little center-right country. And, and that hadn't changed in 50 years.
Bill, just want to jump into your book suggestions. Look what I finally got.
I love it. That's a great book. Yeah.
I'm starting.
Hey, Charles Blain, I have a question for you. A week after the rollout of the ballot initiative, what kind of reaction are you getting? And is it on both sides of the aisle? Is it private, public? What's going on?
I've heard privately from a lot of council members, many council members who are supportive of it. Publicly, we've only had Councilmember Kubash and Peck who showed up, but that's great enough. Listen, I've been telling everybody, Councilmember Kubash is one of the longest serving council members. He's going to be 10 years when he's done, because he had that kind of weird holdover from when they switched the terms. And Peck has been there for an incredibly long time, serving under Starting and stuff. So, there might be some opposition, but from the folks who've actually been around City Hall for a long time, they've been supportive of it. And the folks out there that I've spoken to have been wildly supportive of it, because they don't realize that city council members don't have power. They don't realize that until you talk to them and tell them, listen, there's nothing they could do save for calling a special meeting, which takes a Herculean.
You never get it on the ballot, it'll pass. Turner's going to fight to keep it off the ballot. You'll end up having to file lawsuits and stuff to get it on the ballot. But if you get it on the ballot, it'll pass. I'm convinced of that.
Why aren't the council members who are privately supporting it publicly supporting it, Charles Blain?
Therein lies the problem, because they are afraid, and they shouldn't be afraid because they're all duly elected members of city council. So they shouldn't be afraid, but they are, because the mayor, it's not just this mayor, it's every mayor, has the power to, whatever it is, strike something off the ballot, off the agenda that they need. So they're afraid to come out and say they support it because it looks like it's an attack on him when it's really not.
We really need several other reforms besides that. Council needs to organize itself and not have the mayor appoint committees and chairs. They also need to reform the CIP program. That's the biggest club and carrot that the mayor has, is taking away projects from single member districts and moving them someplace else if they misbehave. And that shouldn't be. I mean, it's ridiculous that that's allowed under the system that we've got. There's 3 or 4 basic reforms that need to be taken, but at least what Charles and them are doing is one step in the right direction.
Chau, are you still with us?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Charles, and then I want to ask Chau a question real quick.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I think what this does is it opens that door, right? So now you can have 3 of them come forth and say, let's reform the CIP process and let's put this up for a vote, rather than having to go and collect the signatures and do all that work that we would previously have to do. So I think it's going to be a new day in Houston. I'm quite excited.
Chau, my question to you is, if there is one measure Houston Area Women's Center could get through the legislature this extraordinary session because of the pandemic conditions and the other pressures, what would that be?
Oh gosh, there's a myriad of legislation before
you get one.
House. Oh boy. One of our biggest talking points is, there's this license to carry legislation that's pending, and just talk to the League of Women Voters and talk to law enforcement. This boyfriend loophole and getting those guns away from domestic abusers is really important to us. There are some policies in place with the Harris County Sheriff's Office and such. It is monumental, it seems, and it's such common sense to us to let's get these guns away from and have a sound gun surrender policy across the state. But we can't seem to. The lawmakers can't seem to budge when it comes to this issue of firearms, because we know if you've got a gun in the house, you're 5 times as likely to die. And we're seeing that. I mean, look at the rates of violence right now in our own community and femicide. It's harrowing. And we can scream from the top of our lungs as long as we can, but when it comes to getting those guns away from abusers, we got to do it. We got to do it across the board.
Dan Patrick is on the record in favor of some form of red flag law, and maybe therein lies the agreement. I don't know if he's retracted that, but I went back and checked that out, and he did say that at one point. Does everybody remember that, Charles?
I'm sorry, I was texting, so I was not paying attention.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go stand in the corner. No, I'm sorry.
I'm out.
I think gun violence is a tremendous problem. I haven't seen anything yet that I think really solves the problem or even makes a significant dent in it. I mean, I wish all these things that we talk about would make a difference, but just trying to think through them, I just don't. And look, I don't care if they pass. I don't need an assault rifle, but I just don't see that any of this stuff at the end of the day really solves the problem. It's really the intersection of dangerous weapons with somebody that's mentally ill. I mean, that is the overwhelming problem we've got. Or somebody that, I guess mental illness is, I'm including a wide range of people in that. I just don't know how you solve the problem. I can't figure it out.
But it's like Bob Price always says on this show, is that the laws that we have on the books to stop this stuff aren't even enforced at this point. The information isn't relayed from agency to agency. They don't enforce what we currently have. So why, levy all these other restrictions if we're not even going to use what we have to see if that solves the problem?
Look, if you don't get started, you don't get anything done. And so there's too many guns on the streets, and it's just that simple. And so if you start today with these reasonable steps, a gun buyback program, so that you can start getting weapons off the streets and banning assault weapons and taking care of these things. And I know the tired old argument, there's already too many, and so we're not going to start. Well, that's BS. If you start now and start reducing the excess weapons on the streets, it does not infringe the rights of responsible gun owners. It just starts reducing the numbers. And over time, it will reduce those numbers, and the numbers will start coming down. And
but
that's the issue.
Chris, but Chris, look, I'm if you want, gun backs are fine. I'll contribute money to it. But the last part that you said, that is the part that I don't, see the evidence for, which is over time it will affect the numbers. We
don't have the evidence because we've never done it.
Well,
I mean, so how can you have any evidence if you don't try?
I just, we have had gun buybacks before, and typically a handful of people show up and give back their guns. And I just can't believe that the people that are likely to commit these crimes are the ones that are likely to show up and give their guns back. I mean, just intuitively, it doesn't seem like to me that it's that likely to have an impact on the problem. Again,
hey guys,
I'm not opposed to it. I'll contribute money to it, but what I worry about is us going off and doing things that feel emotionally satisfying, like we're solving the problem, and it really doesn't solve the problem.
The appetite is extraordinary out there. I went to Academy last week, the one that probably all of you shop at over off of Shepherd and Kirby. They had 2 semi-automatic pistols in the whole store. They had been cleaned out. People are buying weapons at extraordinary pace. And I know that's tough to hear.
In the city.
What's that?
I went looking online. You cannot find a gun shop in this city, at least when I looked, within a 50-mile radius that had in stock good automatic rifles. People were ordering them from other places, having them shipped here and going and picking them up. And to Chris's point with the gun buyback thing, I mean, like Bill said, it's not a fix-all. You know, there's this show, Family Matters, that years ago they did a gun buyback in Chicago, and all these gangs came together and they sold their guns. That's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. The people who are using it to commit crimes are not going to go back and sell them. And to say that you want to ban automatic rifles, well, that is infringing on people's rights. That is. I mean, just because it's not a gun that you can see yourself owning or you would prefer to have doesn't mean that it's one that other people shouldn't.
Well, that's already been ruled on once. It was ruled not an infringement on the Second Amendment. So
I mean, we had that law for 12 years or something.
And if you go back and look, there is evidence that that crime went down during that period of time. So you already have evidence on that.
Correlation's not causation. And
well, look, Bill, you you're either going to use evidence or you're not. You're either going to use evidence or you're not. And during the period of time, correlation
doesn't prove causation, Chris. It doesn't. It's just not. It's a logical flaw. It doesn't. Look, I can do as much damage with an automatic pistol as somebody can do with an assault rifle. All these things are close quarter assaults. It's not like they're shooting people at 100 yards. I mean, they're shooting at point blank range.
Except for Vegas.
Except for my daughter was killed from 200 yards away with a pistol. All right, you want some facts? There's some facts.
Okay, well but Chris, so an assault rifle ban wouldn't have affected that. That's exactly my point.
Well, I don't know. Let's
I don't want an assault rifle. I don't care if you ban them. All I'm saying is, none of these things that are being proposed.
So let's do nothing.
To me to solve the problem.
It's not.
No, I want to do something. I just want to do something that's effective. Because what I really worry about is us going off and doing something that everybody feels good about, and then saying the problem's been solved, and we continue to have people killed. That's the problem I've got.
And this is the reason nothing ever gets done, is because we sit around and say there's nothing we can do because there's no reasonable way to do anything. And then we have people like Ted Cruz who say we can't have this discussion today because people died yesterday. And so nothing ever gets done.
Look, I'm perfectly willing to have the conversation, and I want to get something done, but I want to do something that will actually work. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So far, I haven't seen anything that I think makes a difference. And look, I don't care if they ban assault rifles. I'd probably vote for it if I had a chance to vote for it. I don't care if they ban banana clips. If I had a chance to vote for it, I'd probably vote for it. At the end of the day, if that makes 1/100% difference in the number of people that are killed in gun violence in this country, I'll be amazed.
Hey everybody, let's say goodbye to our Facebook audience, and I want to thank all of you for what was a great conversation. Chau, phenomenal. Thanks for joining us for the first time.
That was great.
Good to see you, Chau.
And Jessica Colon, our old friend, and What's Your Point pioneer. It's glad to have you back in the fold.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Greg.
You guys have a great Sunday.
All right, guys.
Take care.
Good to see you.